it's important. Just remind us why we need to be differentiating and why it's important. As we're going through this, please interrupt me if you have any questions, and please share something if you want to share, okay? Because I would love that. Okay. All right, so when I sent that needs assessment survey, and I was so excited that 12 of you responded. So there were several different needs that came up on this needs assessment survey, which I think is really cool to see the different things that we need. Classroom management came up, instructional planning, and professional growth. But it was very clear that differentiation and helping all the diverse learners in our class is like our number one need, that most of us are like, I need help with this. And it makes sense because we plan these beautiful lessons. Okay, sometimes I will come in here in the summer and I'll lay all this stuff out and I'll make copies. I'm like, yeah, we're gonna cover this unit and we're gonna do this. And then my students come in and they ruin it all because they don't come in the same place and they don't come from the same places. And so then we've got to figure out how to help them when they are not getting what we're teaching them. And when those students come into our classrooms, we are teachers. We are obligated to help them whether we feel like we are qualified or not. So differentiation is always a great thing for us to get a refresher on. All right, so differentiation is teaching the same thing to all of your students. They're learning the same concept, the same objective, but we're taking maybe a different path and we might be going at a different pace to get there. Let me skip through this really quick. And I want to make a little comment on differentiating. If you notice all the different types of drinks, a lot of those were requested. And if we have that many different needs in here for drinks, I mean, how many different needs do we have in our classroom? So you can differentiate instruction many different ways. You can adjust your lessons. You can change up activities. You can offer different types of projects. You can set your classroom up differently so students can learn in ways that match their skills and their needs, their interests, their learning styles. Unfortunately, that takes intentionality and effort, and it makes our job a little bit more complicated. But when we take the time to do it, our students are all headed in the same direction and they're able to accomplish something that's set up just for them. Okay, and that feels good. That feels good for anybody to be able to accomplish something. All right, we can go to the next one. Okay, so why differentiation matters? It's ensuring that our students' needs are met. Our goal as teachers is to teach, and sometimes we have to change things up to make it to where they can actually receive the instruction. It is our obligation to do whatever within our power to meet the students' needs. So that means we have to be flexible. When we're meeting their needs, we accelerate the entire class's learning. Everyone learns. So the lower ones are learning. They may be learning something a little bit different way. The higher ones are learning, and the ones on target, they're all learning. So everything is accelerated, and we're happy. The parents are happy. So you can go to the next slide. There's a lot of different research-based positive results of differentiation, and I was so excited that Miss Feather sent this article today, because if you read the first paragraph, it says, research consistently shows that these hands-on experiences are not just engaging, they are essential, helping mathematical ideals click faster and remain firmly embedded over time. So this is basically talking about manipulatives in math. Manipulatives, that's a form of differentiation, okay? And that helps our test scores, okay? Improved academic achievement, strengthened writing abilities, greater reading comprehension, enhanced critical thinking and problem solving, and promotes mathematical problem solving abilities, which is shown on test scores. So, I mean, when we are differentiating for them, they're all going to test better, and that's really good. Last year, my test results for the standardized scores, and I think Ms. Haynes as well, significantly changed once Ms. Call started pulling our lower students for reading, and then she also started pulling our uppers. So I had two different groups that sometimes it's hard to meet both of their needs when you're teaching on target. and both of them just flourished, both groups. I have one student who started in her low group this year and has she's definitely one of my top readers now. So it just shows when we meet them where they're at, then they can grow. Thank you, Ms. Call, for letting me use you as an example today. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so if you need and you want to differentiate your instruction, which you should, you have to assess your students. You have to know them. You can't prepare your lessons properly if you don't know where your students are. So we do kindergarten readiness tests, and I can look at that test and immediately know, well, we can't teach them writing yet because they don't know how to hold a pencil, okay? So we got to start there. Or if they already know all their color words, they know every single letter and the sound, they're ready to read. So you can kind of gauge where they're at. We do that a lot with the entry test. You know, if they're coming into 4th grade, we test them to see where they're at. You find the gaps or find out where they are, what you need to build on. Identify their learning preferences and their interests. Okay, so in kindergarten, we send out like that parent survey, tell me what your kid likes, all that stuff. That stuff is really important because that helps you engage the students and really motivate them to learn when you're incorporating all of those different things that they like into the instruction. So I did a survey, I think last year, with Mrs. Jones's class, Maria Jones's class, and we surveyed the students, and we asked them things about what they liked, how they enjoyed learning, things about their home life, and to be honest, we were shocked. We were like, whoa, we had no idea some of these things about the students because we never thought to ask them. But once you get to know them like a little bit on a deeper level, more than just from the classroom, but maybe what they're able to write down personally, you can find out a lot more about your students. So assess them, find out all different kinds of things about them, get to know them. Okay, identify the student's knowledge and understanding. So there's lots of ways you can find out what do they know. Does anybody use exit tickets? Okay, awesome. Is there a certain way that you use them in particular?
Sticky notes or
so what do you do with them? So just in case someone doesn't know.
Well, sometimes it's like reading related, and I'd have them write down something, and then like on their way out the door, they would post them on my bookshelf, or they'd put them on my desk.
Like what they learned from the reading?
Sure, or they had something specific to look for, or we were doing things that conflict with our biblical worldview.
Yes.
And they were writing things like that down and that we were reading.
No, that's awesome. So let's say you're going to teach on the life cycle of a plant. You can say, well, I kind of want to know what they know. So you can say, before you leave class today, I want you to write down everything you know about the life cycle of a plant. And I want you to turn it in before you walk out the door. So then you can look and see, well, they know most of this, so I can build on this and we can learn something, maybe a little bit more advanced on it. And you can also see who doesn't know. We do this a lot, class discussion. You can say, hey, today we're learning about Martin Luther King. Who was Martin Luther King? And you can find out what they know, how in depth do you need to go about his life and who he was and what he did for our country. Checklist, you could have them fill out a checklist before you enter a unit on things that they've learned about before, things they've never heard of. Our graduate study classes actually do this. They say, please give me a summary of everything you know about the objectives of this class. So then the professor knows how much she needs to teach on each item. But anyway, so it's a very good way to find out what your students know, and you can't really differentiate until you know what they need to know. So that's important. All right, we're ready to move on. Okay, so the student definitely benefits from the differentiation. Student engagement and motivation will definitely increase. So if you know their interest and you decide, hey, I know all the kids like this TV show. There's a clip that will go with my lesson today. Immediately, you've motivated them, you've engaged them. They're kind of excited, and they notice when we remember little things about them. Maybe you specifically, I know Miss Call loves to get books that she knows the students like to learn about certain things, and they notice that, and they love that, and that immediately engages them. There's enhanced social emotional learning. So basically what that means is everybody likes to feel like they're a part. And if you have a student who they really can never meet any goal of the classroom, and that's very defeating. Or maybe you have a student who everything is boring because they already know all of this. So when you have something specific that, Okay, maybe in kindergarten I have a student who's only learning letters. Okay, they haven't gotten to a reading book yet, but I can give them something that they can actually accomplish, and I can give them a star on that paper. They're gonna feel like they fit into the class and they belong there. And that is very, very important. Like I said, these students don't usually stay in these places we are if we're meeting them where they're at. And then